Welcome, everyone, to another episode of MyTake. We're glad that you have tuned in to join in our conversation today. My name is Lola Oguntomilade, and with me are my girlfriends, Nike, Tosi, Jumoke, and Feyi. Say hi, guys.
Hi,
And,
everyone.
yeah.
Hi.
And we also have a guest girlfriend joining us today, Toyin Fasho Singh. She's a great friend, a good friend of mine, a sister. Toyin has a passion to empower others to discover and maximize their core abilities. She's a Master of Clinical Mental Health Counseling degree candidate, a certified youth mental health first aid USA instructor. She's also a John Maxwell Team certified speaker, a trainer, and parenting and family coach, and American Foundation for Suicide Prevention field advocate. She's the author of 5 books. They're all available on Amazon. And her programs include More Than a Phase, which provides mental health awareness, training, education, and teen recovery, a character development and leadership program for teenagers. Welcome, Tony. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Great. MyTake is a forum where we ladies hang out, we unwind and chat about the happenings around us while we're lending our voices to some of the social issues in the world today. Our goal is to promote a culture of love and compassion, as well as truth and candidness. On today's episode, we're going to talk about what it means to be emotionally healthy and how we take care of this aspect of ourselves, of our health, amid all this chaos that is happening around us today. I'm sure my girlfriends will agree with me that this has been an interesting year, right? We welcome questions and comments in the chat box. Please feel free to use that. Share your comments in there, questions as we proceed on the show today. We also have a poll question today that we'd like everyone to participate in. You'll see it at the bottom of the screen, and you'll see the website. So please feel free to use your web browser to get on that and answer the poll question for us today. And we'll be reviewing those answers later on in the show. Okay, so let's get right to it. I'm thinking about January, how things were in January, how we were, all the activities that was going on, our joy and optimism for the new year and everything. And now we're in October, right? With everything that has happened, a pandemic like we've never seen before, countries all over the world, including America, in active fight for justice. Such an unusual year. It's just been a strange year. And I want to ask my ladies today, in what one word would you use to describe how this year has been? Anyone can jump in.
I think for me, the word I use all the time is unprecedented. It was one of the very early words I remember my pastor using, and it's a year where we're seeing for I think a whole generation, we're seeing a combination of factors in one scenario. It's almost like, for lack of a better term, what you would call the perfect storm. At times, I wonder if people were to do a movie, I don't think they could have written the script this well with the impact. So it's really been an unprecedented year.
Absolutely. Tony, what do you think? What one word?
My word is intense. Everything has been at 100. Nothing. It's just been 100 all year.
Absolutely. Faye, what about you?
Exhausting. It's one thing after the other. When you think it can't get anyway. We thank God, but exhausting is the word I would use.
Yeah, I agree with that. Jumoke?
I would describe it as one big emotional roller coaster. It's just been crazy. Everybody was excited in January 2020. Everybody had their game plan, and then life started happening. And while everything has just been crazy, we're still alive. That's why I refer to it as emotional roller coaster. There's still, opportunities to give God the glory, to be thankful. You have those moments that make you smile. But it's been one heck of a year, just all over the place, everywhere, in every part of the world. It's just been it's been crazy, you know, in every aspect, in the spiritual aspect, religious aspect, physical, even climate change, political, every aspect has been affected. So yes.
Yeah. And what about you, Tos? What one word?
Yeah,
You're on mute. Mhm.
I said I don't have a word. I really don't.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
I haven't unpacked all my emotions about 2020. So I really don't have a word.
It has been a tough year. It certainly has been a stressful year so far, with significant impact on our overall health and well-being in more ways than one. This year has impacted different people in different ways. For many people, we've experienced feelings of anger, of grief, frustration, anxiety, uncertainty, fear, at one point or another this year. Just a lot, like Tosin said, a lot to unpack. A lot has been going on. And these are all these feelings of anger and grief and frustration, anxiety. I know I'm constantly on the edge, you know. These are all indicators of emotional wellness. You know, these are all feelings that are a barometer of our emotional health. Yet we don't acknowledge or talk about this, you know, what this aspect of our health is and how it affects us in our daily lives. And since we have Toyin here, and with your background, Toyin, I just wanted to ask you, why do you think this is? Why do you think that, you know, we have all these feelings, but we find it difficult to talk about it?
Some of the things that actually I'm going to answer the question in two parts. And the first part is the fact that some of the reasons why we do not talk about emotional or mental wellness is lack of self-awareness. A lot of us do not actually pay attention to ourselves. We pay more attention to the physical, forgetting the fact that man is tripartite. We're spirit, soul, and body. And the soul is made of the mind, the will, and the emotions, and the intellect. So everything is intertwined. Nothing is independent. It's all interdependent. So one part affects the other. So because of this lack of self-awareness, a lot of people are not even aware. We treat physical symptoms, not realizing that the root cause is emotional or mental of the mind. And then another reason is erroneous beliefs. Some people believe children cannot be depressed. Other people believe, based on religion, that if you are a religious person or a spiritual person, you cannot have any mental or emotional problems, or it's a lack of faith. And then the third is stigma.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that there's a connection between emotional health and our physical health? You mentioned that earlier, that that there's things that we can feel, and people pay attention to the physical. Maybe they don't realize that a lot of their physical symptoms are related to these other symptoms of emotional health.
Yeah, because for us as human beings, stress presents in four major ways: emotions, the mind, behavior, and physical. A lot of people go to the emergency room for migraine-like headaches, irritability, fatigue, not realizing that all these physical presentations actually have an emotional or a mind root cause. It takes something like anxiety. Anxiety is an emotional response. It's of the emotions. But a person who's anxious, their mind races. They can't. They make hasty decisions out of fear. So it's connected. It's an emotional thing, but you're seeing presentations also in the mind. So everything is interconnected.
Absolutely.
You know, I was just going to say that that's quite interesting. You know what Toyin just said in terms of the way our emotions show up in physical. Our emotions trigger physical reactions. And so, can you imagine, especially if you can imagine someone having to take medication, I'm constantly, I can't sleep, I'm tired. And we just think it's just work or something like that. So what you just said is quite interesting, that sometimes we actually ignore or we're not cognizant of these emotional issues because they present themselves as regular physical symptoms, and we don't realize something else is driving it. Now, that's quite a very interesting one to think about.
I can also speak directly to that. So when you were saying this, I was throughout this year, my asthma that I had as a child has reared its head, and I was treating it as asthma. And I went to the doctor. The doctor said there's nothing wrong with you, and it took a while for me to finally realize that my brother-in-law was making fun of me. He's a doctor. He said, "You're just anxious," and I couldn't actually believe what he was saying until I actually now read a little bit more about how anxiety leads to hyperventilation, which can present as asthma. And I started doing more breathing exercises and realizing that that's actually what I need after I had been pumping myself with all these drugs. So yeah, this year, when I say this year has been exhausting, my anxiety definitely presented as a physical thing, and I was treating it as a physical thing. Before realizing it was actually more psychological. So very, very important point.
Yeah.
Wow.
I agree. It's a lot, and I don't think people are aware, and it brings me to, I've been watching on the shows, I watch a lot of TV. It's a way for me personally to unwind at the end of the day. And I noticed that on main media, on these TV shows lately, I know like there's an episode of Blackish. I don't know if it's coming up or if it's aired. And then I just watched This Is Us, where they address the issue of, everything that's going on, especially in the African American community, and the impact it's had on us in our day-to-day and how we don't realize it. I saw it flash across my Instagram, and I think it was a promo for a show of Blackish, where Dre, who is the character, the male character on the show, he went to the grocery store to buy groceries, and he wanted to buy cookies. And he basically had a breakdown over picking up the wrong cookies. I don't know if anybody's seen that. I think he wanted Oreos. It was a different form of Oreo cookies. And he just, went off the handle. And so I felt like in a way in that show, and then in the This Is Us, it talked about men, it showed men specifically and how they are responding to all this stress. And how acceptable or not acceptable it is. Researchers have said that men and women are distinct creatures when it comes to emotion, and these gender differences can affect emotional health. What do you ladies think? Is there a stereotype that, do you agree that there are gender differences in the way men respond to stress compared to women? And I'll start with Tosin on that one.
I definitely believe that there are gender differences when it comes to mental health. If we go about the generalization of the world, men are supposed to be tough and the bravos, and they're supposed to, just present a good front. They're more logical in their thinking. Generally speaking, of course, there are exceptions to everything. And we women, we wear our hearts on our sleeves. We're more emotional. We're more the sensitive ones. So the way men deal with, stress or, mental health and all of that, plays a different factor. For instance, when I lost, me and my husband lost a child, the way he handled it was completely different from the way I handled it. The child meant the same to him as the child meant to me, but the way he went about it was completely different from the way I went about it. And so definitely there's a difference in the way I see, men and women handle mental health and the way they are. Of course, like I said, there are exceptions, but the generalization is true to that fact.
I know something. I just wanted to quickly agree with what you said, because I would have answered that question by saying, absolutely, yes, I agree. And I would have said, well, because women are very conversational, in relationships, they tend to have an avenue, they can talk about it. And men, because they're more internal, cerebral, they may just keep things in. And then I was just doing some research, and I found out that apparently in most cases, women actually suffer depression much more than men do. And I was surprised at that, because I just thought women have an outlet. But then I remembered, I don't know, I think it was making its round on WhatsApp. There was this WhatsApp post that we were laughing at that said, men wanted to organize something, and a couple of men in a WhatsApp group said, hey, should we all catch up somewhere? And the first guy says, yes. Second guy says, who's else? Third guy says, I'll bring this. And everybody, all the other guys said, okay. That was the end of it. And we're all laughing because when you moved over to the women's WhatsApp group, the WhatsApp was so long, it trying to just agree to meet and what they would bring, whose house, how many times it changed, that, after probably 30 minutes, they hadn't arrived anywhere. And a part of me was wondering that as women, do we have the propensity to maybe just regurgitate stuff, or do we build up things as women? Why do we, sometimes go through that emotional, or even in some cases, why are more women more prone to depression? It's probably still something I'm throwing out there, but I tend to see that. I thought it was very interesting that the polls are showing that women tend to suffer depression more than men.
I think for most women, we are conditioned to be strong. We are conditioned to be tough. And especially in these times we're in, we find most women running businesses, running corporations in different positions that require strength. So you're juggling that. And most of us and most women do have families they're taking care of. They're responsible for other aspects of their lives and responsible for other people's lives. So we are conditioned to think and to behave that like we can't break. So we pack that on and we hold so much in. And when we break, sometimes I don't know, like what I was saying when Dre was having the meltdown in the cookie aisle, it just takes something little to just break, because you've been holding on and you've been trying to be so strong for so long, and you're not dealing with your emotional health in any form. You just have to be strong at all times. And then it takes one little thing, maybe the light, you missed the light at the traffic light, or you're going to be late for 5 minutes, or it takes something just so minute to just break you. And it's because we're not dealing with it. But yes, I also think that not only I agree that some men and some women, they deal with emotional stresses differently, but I also think it's a personality issue. You find out that some men, they just, quote unquote, they can't really handle it. And that's why you see some people like indulging in some excesses. You have some people turning to alcohol, turning to drugs, or maybe they dealt with pain in one, in some time of their lives, and they go back to that pain meds that was still in their medicine cabinet just to cope, just to zone out. And, I think for some women too, and then you have some people that can't handle any little, they can't take it, and then they start indulging with different things. So I also think it's a personality thing. Your experiences, what has shaped you, what have you been dealing with before this stressor that broke you came? So yeah, I think it's a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of factors.
Do you guys think it's the society-wise, though? Do you think it's more socially acceptable for women to feel and express emotional anxiety and fear and things versus men? I see Tony nodding. Like, what do you think? Because I feel like even if a male was to feel fear, I don't think they will articulate fear. They might articulate anger versus fear, or it might come out in some other way. I don't know. What are your thoughts about how acceptable this is?
Yeah, they did a study, National Institutes of Health, in which they found out that, the response to stress, we talk about the fight and flight response, but one thing they found out gender-wise was there was a slight deviation. More of men presented the fight and flight, but for women, it was more the tend and befriend. Think of a scenario and a woman is being attacked and somebody shows up with a gun. Now, the guy is going to go into fight mode, but the woman is going to try to talk him down. So it's almost like hostage negotiation. We're going to try, like, are you sure you want to do this? Have you thought of the consequences? We're trying to we're trying to befriend, we're trying to tend. So we are more relational. So that also presents when it comes to how we handle stress. And it is true. Women are at a higher risk for anxiety and depression, while men are at a higher risk for aggressive behaviors and substance abuse because they just want to mask it. They just want to silence it. So those are the ways that gender, and even when they have the same condition, it still presents different. Take something as simple as depression. Most women are cookie cutter, depression, the withdrawal, the fatigue, and all that. Most men present aggression. Now, when you see an aggressive man, you're not thinking depression. You're thinking another disorder altogether, but that's his response. So society, yes. Culture, yes. And then also personality.
Absolutely.
I think even with what is going on in today's world with the, the Black Lives Matter movement, Black men are being targeted. I think that creates another level of emotional stress and fear and how they deal with, this thing. You see a car pulled over. If it's a Black man in the car with white cops outside, immediately, like you just said, the person is on alert, even if it's just for a minor traffic stop. You're already on guard, and the people passing by are on guard as well because of what has been going on in the media. So yeah,
I agree. And we talk about society's expectations with regards to gender and how that impacts how we respond to emotional stress and fear. But what about culture? I know culture is also an aspect of it. Do cultural scripts dictate how positive and negative emotions should be experienced and displayed? What do you think, Faye?
I mean, definitely culture plays a role. I think this whole conversation that we've been having on the men is also cultural in nature, right? Men are not supposed to show emotion, and therefore, you have different results between men and women. But you even just have societies in general, like growing up. I mean, there was no such thing as mental health. We were not even, it wasn't a thing, So even us growing up, people go through all sorts of things as teenagers and in high school and college, and you don't really think about it as something that impacts your mental health because Black people don't have or Africans don't have mental health issues. Luckily, that is changing, and we're recognizing that mental health is just as important as physical health, and I think things are pointing in the right direction.
I think.
Okay, let me since Faye, I just wanted to say that Faye, did you want to continue?
Okay. No, the last.
We lost your last sentence.
It's not giving.
Okay. I just wanted to say that. Okay. I just wanted to say that this morning a friend had texted me that some people during the mentoring program were sharing about difficulties and challenges and everything. And it just occurred to me that growing up, when we children would go to our parents and try to talk to them that, oh, this is what we're going, most of the times our moms would say, in Yoruba they would say, "Ma somo, I'm a filolo lowo," meaning don't say it again, we'll just give it to God. So when children are coming to talk, they are shut down. They're not given the free space to say what they truly have on their hearts. So they get used to that culturally growing up, that God would just handle it. Don't talk about it. Don't bring it to the surface, because when you bring it to the surface, you may be breathing life into it. And to be honest, in a lot of instances, that's what affects me. When people say, "Tosin, you didn't tell me this," friends of mine would say, "Tosin, you didn't say this or you didn't say that." And I would say, it's because I don't want to breathe life into it. Because growing up, you're not supposed to breathe life into it. You're just supposed to commit it to God. You're not supposed to share your emotions. So I grew up with that. So culture plays a heavy role. Like Faye said, we weren't taught about mental health. Sister Tony said, it's a stigma. When you talk about mental health, are you crazy? Do you want to go to Yaba mental left or Yaba arrow mental? So people really, in our culture where I come from, it's not something that is embraced to discuss, to talk about. We didn't grow up with going to psychiatrists, and I'm not saying that that's the only way, but I'm just saying that it's not our norm.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one in terms of cultural and upbringing. My mom used to have that problem with me all the time. She'd say, it's not everything that you're feeling inside we should see on your face. That was her favorite thing. Because if I'm angry, you see it on my face. If I'm happy, you see it on my face. And that thing used to bother her so much. She'll always be pinching me when she's sitting next to me. Like, just smile. Must everybody know that you're not happy? That kind of thing. I think that's a cultural thing as well.
Absolutely. I was just going to agree with that. And in fact, sometimes even I, as a parent now that I quote unquote I would, should know better. Sometimes even, we still repeat some of those things because that's how we're raised up. Sometimes we're being, there's nothing wrong with being hopeful. There's nothing wrong with demonstrating faith, but there is time to talk through those issues, because sometimes when you're talking through it, it sounds like you don't have faith, sounds like, you don't trust. But sometimes I think you just have to talk it out. And and we really look at it, somebody who did that, if we're really honest, was one of the people that God says is a man after his heart, in the Bible. I mean, sometimes when you look at some of David's Psalms, when he's wailing, I mean, he just goes on and just, he's even harassing God. That how can you even do this? I can't even believe you even, So I realize now that and God could handle it. So sometimes as a parent, and if I can go back to what I think Tony said earlier on about, I think even our kids don't always know how to express what they're going through. For example, one of my daughters, I remember one day she was super frustrated and she said, "Why can't I take the train to London?" I said, "To do what? Who is in London? There's a lockdown, there's a pandemic. Don't you understand? This is not a year like normal." She says, "No, but people are going out." I say, "Yes, people are going out, but it's really if they have to." "Okay, what do you want to go do?" And she said, "Well, I just want to go." I just say, "You want to go on a train? Then you're going to go through this already with everybody there, this and that." And I realized rather than me understanding part of the frustration, because for me, I was super glad I didn't have to go on the train to go to work. I was so thankful to Jesus that I can work from home. So for a split second, I couldn't align with the fact that she obviously at a young age just wants to go out, while I'm at the point where, oh, finally I can stay in. So I think just that, but that wasn't how the conversation played out. It played out in a different way, but it took a while to go back to the underlying emotions of what was really being said, because you can interpret it like you're just being careless or you're just being flippant, so sometimes our kids come across like that, but it's really because of what they are feeling. Like you said earlier, Statonia, about, not understanding what's presenting itself. We're looking at things on the surface, not the emotions or the mental aptitude behind it.
Yeah. And in the discussion of culture you guys brought up, I think intertwined in the culture conversation is also faith and religion. And we've alluded to that a couple of times in our responses to these questions is, I know particularly for Africans, culture and religion, faith, they're intertwined. You're almost saying the same thing when you talk about both of that. What impact would you say faith has? Just to elaborate a little bit on that, what impact do you say faith has on emotional and mental well-being?
In 2009, I think it was Ward, Clark, and Hedrick, they did a poll. And the result was that 90.4% of African Americans see religion as a coping skill when it comes to mental illness. So basically what they're saying is 90.4% of African Americans, when they have a mental health issue, they go to church, they pray, they read their Bible, they go to their pastors. So for them, religion is a coping skill. Now that's a very, very high percentage. So two things. One, a lot of times, especially for those in the Christian faith, a lot of times we see faith as denying reality. That's not what faith is. I believe it was Kenneth Hagin that said, God told him one time, "I told my people that basically what he was saying is faith is not denying what is, it's denying it the right to remain so." So a lot of times somebody will come to a doctor or come to a psychologist or a psychiatrist and they'll say, "What's wrong with you?" "Oh, I'm fine." "Then why are you here?" Is that, "Oh, I'm not going to make a wrong confession." That's not what faith is. That's foolishness. You are here for a reason. State the reason why you're here. And so But the truth of the matter is, when we really understand what faith is, or even now, mainstream healthcare, mainstream psychology and mental health care, they've come to acknowledge the fact that spirituality is a protective factor. It's a coping skill for people when it comes to whether physical ailments or mental ailments. And the truth about faith is, two of the major themes that underlie emotional or mental distress are hopelessness and loss of control. And faith answers both. When it comes to hopelessness, the Bible tells us that faith is the substance, it's the foundation of things hoped for. So basically, what you're saying is, I have a relationship with this person, and based on their track record, I can trust what they say. And because of what they say they will do, or give me, or help me with, I have a foundation on which to rest my hope, my expectation. So faith answers that for hopelessness. And then when you come to the loss of control, faith lets you identify the things that are within your control, empowers you to deal with them, and helps you to entrust what is beyond your control to the one that has all control. So the reality of it is that faith is an integral part. It is a major resource. But the problems we have are with misconceptions and erroneous beliefs, and just the belief that once I'm a Christian, I heard somebody say one time that a Christian cannot be demon possessed. Yes, a Christian can be demon possessed. A Christian can have a mental illness. Now, not all mental illness is demon possession. That's another issue, another major stigma about it, because people, once they hear it's a mental health issue, then automatically it's demon possession, and nobody wants to be labeled, so nobody's coming for help. We need to separate the two.
I think so, the comment you made. Sorry. No, I was going to say, I hope I can put it properly. Was somebody once said, faith is calling those things that be not as though they were, not calling the things that are as though they are not. And I thought that was quite interesting, because that's why we don't deal with the things. This is what it is. You should deal with it and believe for what isn't, But so I was just going to say that, but I'm actually of that school of thought that a Christian cannot be possessed, but they can be oppressed. I feel as if, so everything you said, I agree with it from the perspective of, because I feel when a Christian is oppressed, it's where their bodies or their soul is being, oppressed in one way or the other, spiritual attack or the rest of it. But because they have the Spirit of God inside of them, the Spirit has taken hold of their spirit, so the enemy can only oppress, as opposed to a person who doesn't have the Spirit filling them up. And so in that case, they could be possessed, But I think I really agree with your point that even that oppression isn't really addressed, or people are made to look at oppression as being so spooky. But an oppression or an attack against a person's mind is an attack. And at that point, a Christian is being oppressed by the enemy, and they should be receiving support, as opposed to us seeing them as being weak. And, I think, the way you portray it, and I've followed some of your social media comments, you always sort of give examples of the way we would treat physical health and the way we would treat emotional. Whenever you put them together in some of your Instagram posts, it drives home that point that we're very biased in how we look at both.
At what point does a Christian know, okay, this is a let me pray about it issue, and then this is a I need to seek help issue? For Christians in particular, I know Tosin has been trying to say something. I don't know if it addresses that, but I would like us to address that in terms of, at what point do you say, okay, you're praying about it, it's good, but now you need to seek additional support?
What I wanted to say is in relation to that, in sense that what I'm hearing Sister Tony say is that our faith should not hinder us from speaking up. Because a lot of times our normal resolute is just pray about it and not discuss it with anyone or anything and keep dealing with it. So in terms of when does someone know, I'll leave it back to Sister Tony, but when someone knows when to pray about something and when to speak up, I guess she'll talk about that. But I just wanted to say that what I'm hearing from her is that our faith should not hinder us from speaking when we deeply have issues that need to be addressed?
Yeah. Well, I think the way we need to look at it is we need to see wellness as a continuum. Now, when you look at wellness as a continuum, on one side, you have everything operating at optimal working condition. And on the other extreme, we have severe impairment. So when you see wellness as a continuum, it makes you understand that you're somewhere on that spectrum. You're either veering to the everything's going well, or you're veering to the place where, okay, lights are blinking. So when we have that mindset, it doesn't get us frazzled. First of all, the brain is an organ like any other organ. Just like the liver can get sick and the kidney can get sick, the brain can get sick. So there's some issues that they're actually just physical. Maybe there was an accident and there was trauma to the brain, maybe something congenital. So there are other things going on. Some of it could just be hormonal. Some of it, something as simple as your diet can affect your emotional wellness. Something as simple as exercise can help, because exercise releases feel-good hormones, which helps you with your mood. So, there's so many factors to it. But one thing as a believer, no matter whatever we are doing, we need to be praying. No matter whatever we are doing, we need to do it from an attitude of faith, a posture of faith. We have to realize that it's not a case of God or medicine. God gave medicine. It's all part of the healing package. The healing package of God includes physical health care, mental health care, prayer of faith, anointing oil, everything. It's all one package. We try to separate it. It's all one. The devil is not trying to heal anybody. He's not the one that gave the surgeons the wisdom or gave medical science or all this research and everything. It's all a part of God. It depends on where we are. And that's another thing. We have to be honest with ourselves. If you do not have the faith to believe God for healing from a headache, please don't try to use your faith alone when it gets to cancer. Use faith and help. Go for, if they say you need surgery, believe God the surgery will go well. If they say you need medication, believe God you'll not experience any of the negative side effects. Believe it will work. Believe for wisdom for your surgeons, for your physicians, for your specialists. So it's together. It's all a part of God's healing package.
Is there an emoji for clapping and all of that? Because Sister Tony, you just packed so much in there that I just have to.
Absolutely.
And this is such an important topic. We don't talk about it enough, and I don't think people also are aware of the resources that are available. And you made a great point about it is no different from the same way we maintain our physical health. We go to the doctor when we find symptoms. We take medicine. With certain things, we eat better. We exercise. We do different things to maintain our physical health. It's the same thing, I think, for our emotional and mental health well-being. But for some reason, we separate it and we look at one as something that is our fault, a negative stigma, and we see one as is not our fault. It's out of our control. It's more acceptable to be physically ill than it is to be emotionally or mentally ill. We have a poll. I just wanted to remind everyone, if you've not had a chance to go onto the poll and respond, please go ahead and do so. And this topic, it's going to be a series. We're going to, delve a little bit deeper into this emotional health and mental health over time on our show. And we're also going to talk about physical health as well. And are we going for help that we need? And do we feel comfortable discussing our health with our physicians and are we comfortable advocating for ourselves in terms of emotional health, mental health, and physical health? So we'll be talking more about that. I wanted to ask our ladies here, how do you know, what are the signs? What do you think are the signs that you see feeling this way, or these are my triggers? What do you guys think are the signs and symptoms that are obvious that you can use as an indicator for? I think I'm at the point where I need to address this issue. Faye, what do you think?
I mean, I think one trigger for me that I've noticed is when I'm eating a lot and I don't have any willpower to exercise, I don't have any energy to really take care of myself, then I realize that I'm not in the best place mentally. And I read something a while back that said you have a limited amount of energy, even in terms of just including mental energy. And when you're stressed, you're depleted from having energy for willpower. So I mean, for me anyway, that's one thing that I now check, that what's going on, what do I need to address, what's bothering me. So that's one thing that I think that works for me, is really seeing if I don't have time to do those things that help keep me healthy, then I realize that there's something going on mentally.
Yeah. And Jumoke, what are your thoughts? I mean, you're a nurse, and you see people come in for different things, and you come across different things every day. What do you think are signs and symptoms of emotional unwellness?
Like Faye said, sometimes is weight gain, unexplained weight gain. You're just indulging in food excessively. On the other hand, it could be you're just losing weight. You can't explain, but you're just not eating. You don't have appetite, and you're just losing weight for no reason, not purposefully, but you're just not feeding yourself. So your appetite is depleted, and you're not nourishing yourself. Some people, they start to just perform poorly. If they're in school, they're not doing as well. Their work is affected. It's just poor performance generally. They start getting very irritable. They can't, you ask them a simple question and they're just very irritated. They're cutting people off, behaving badly. And they themselves might not know that they're displaying signs of emotional health, issues. Some people, like I said earlier, they start indulging in alcohol, some behaviors that they weren't, some they weren't displaying before. Things are out of character for them generally. So I think for each person, you have to really know your own triggers so that you are aware when you're going out of your norm, your baseline. So but yeah, there are different ways people exhibit different signs that all is not well. But it's also important that people have loved ones around them that could point these things out to them, because sometimes we don't know that we are cutting people short. We're just behaving badly. We're not performing well, and we're doing all sorts. So it's good to have somebody that could call you aside and say, Jumoke, what's going on? I notice this and the other. Do you want to talk about it? Something as easy as that. When Nike said earlier on, that when in Psalms and David goes on, to me, that's a form of therapy. Just talking, even if it's to, I don't say talk to God, I don't talk to anybody else, but I think it was an outlet for him. Just talking about it sometimes makes you feel better. Just talking about it. And then if you're lucky enough to have somebody that is a good listener and they could actually point you in the right direction, they could give you pointers, they could give you tips, they could give you resources that could, be very, very helpful. But yeah, I just wanted to point out also, I think our guest speaker also mentioned it earlier, our immune system is very linked to our emotional health. Studies have shown that if something as simple as laughing, smiling, it boosts, like she said earlier, it just, there's something good about doing that. So the opposite, there's something bad about just being in a depressive state that affects your physical health generally. So if you already have underlying issues, let's say you already have cancer, or you already have heart disease or diabetes, and then you now put emotional stressors on top of that, it gets worse very rapidly. So that's why some people, and studies have shown that as well, that somebody that has cancer and does not know they have cancer, but they're living quote unquote their best life. They're doing everything they need to do, eating right, exercising. They're just happy. They're not in a depressive state. They do better. But the opposite, you'll be amazed to how the same person can decline because of a stressor, a major stressor, or they don't know, or even just hearing the news, it's something they didn't know before, just takes them out quite rapidly. So yes, our immune system, our emotional health, our physical health, they're all intertwined and linked.
And you mentioned that, you bring up a great point, that a lot of times we're not aware. We're not aware that something is wrong. Like, for me, I'm not a very emotional person, but since March, every month is like little things make me cry now. Like I watch something, a cartoon or something funny, and I'm just in tears. A movie, things that, I used to consider myself, very hard about. And now I'm just like any little thing, I dissolve to tears. So sometimes, you don't realize things are happening in you and you have to be super aware, or other people might point it out. I know, Tosin, you do a lot of counseling. What have you seen as, indicators as well from just your experience in counseling, your experience counseling folks, as triggers and signs of this part of our health?
Okay, just to add to what everyone has said, when people withdraw, that is a major sign, because you used to hear from the person, and then all of a sudden, sometimes we hide under the "I am so busy" thing. It's because some people don't want to unpack what they're dealing with, and also the I don't even know what to say, infamous, the midlife crisis that a lot of people go through, for a lot of people just reveal when they go out and just buy something expensive, because they realize they've not hit a certain goal or a certain thing at a certain age, and then they just decide that, what, I'm going to think about me, and I'm going to just so they begin to act out in different things. One of the ways, like Jumoke said, drinking and all of those things, or just doing things that you normally would not do, all of a sudden you're not doing. So those are triggers that I wanted to add, that we've seen talking to different people.
Yeah, I agree. When a friend of yours is suddenly acting out of character, you might want to check on that person and just check and see, are you okay? Is everything okay? And, sometimes I feel like people, are not comfortable leading the conversation. You as a friend or as a family member might need to probe and prompt a little bit and just let the person know that, I'm here, I'm available, is everything all right? And you might have to do that a couple of times, I think, sometimes with some people to get it. As I think somebody mentioned earlier, that a lot of this is also personality driven. Not a lot of people are able to emote.
I wanted to add that, in this day of social media, a lot of us, I won't say everyone, a lot of us have gotten comfortable to texting someone to say, how are you? I haven't heard from you. And their response would be, I'm fine. We don't pick up the phone anymore to check on people like we normally would have done. I know it's a lot, people are going through, everyone's going through something, but like you said, a lot of people are not going to text you what they're going through. You understand? It would mean picking up the phone or visiting the person to find out all they've been through. So yeah, that too.
Definitely encouragement for us to reach out. If there's someone that comes to your mind today that you've not heard from for a while, to reach out and check on the person. Tosin, did we get any responses to the poll?
Yes, we did. I would share my screen right now.
Okay. And while Tosin is working on that, just to round up the conversation today, I wanted to find out from folks, what, now that we've talked about the signs and the symptoms and the triggers and the indicators of this part of our of this part of our health, what can we do about it? What steps can we take on a regular basis to maintain our emotional and mental well-being? And where can we go for help? I know that, some people, there are things going on in their lives. Where do I go? Where do I go for information? Where can I go for counseling? I don't want to just see any regular counselor. Are there Christian counselors out there that, I know that their counsel is rooted or grounded in alignment with my faith? Or, where can I get resources? So, that's how I want us to round this up. We want to share resources with people. Where can we go for help? Where can we go for more information?
I'll start off by saying that this is to parents and caregivers. Pay attention to your children. Pay attention to the school-age children. Pay attention, most especially to your teenagers, because a lot of times we tend to overlook teenagers because a lot of their development at this stage, it presents as symptoms of mental illness. So a lot of times we just feel, oh, they're just being teenagers. They're just being teenagers. But you need to know your teen and you need to pay attention. Anytime you see changes that affect them at school, at home, with their peers, then those are red flags. Take, for example, when they get to that teen age, they begin to withdraw from family and they want to spend more time with their peers. Their peers have more influence, more say into their lives. But when you have a teenager who's withdrawing from family and withdrawing from friends, that's a red flag. Or you have a teen that used to be interested in sports. All of a sudden, they're no longer interested in sports. What are they now interested in? Now they can change. They can decide, I used to play soccer. Now I want to play an instrument, or I want to sing, or I want to dance, or something different. But when they stop something and they're not replacing it with anything you can see, then you need to dig deeper. What are they doing with that time? I mean, there's no vacuum. They're filling that space with something. So those are the kind of things you need. Ask questions. Spend time with them. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Because you have to build that relationship and that rapport. But please pay attention to them, especially at this time, because they are grieving too. We might think, oh, you don't pay bills, you don't do this, you're not responsible for anything. So, I mean, this pandemic hasn't really affected you, but they have been affected. Their way of life has changed. It was not a gradual thing. It changed overnight. So they lost some things. Some of them were seniors. They couldn't go through their entire senior thing. Some of them were, just different things, just the not being able to go hang out with friends, not being able to do all their extracurricular things. So all these are things they are grieving. They are suffering loss. Some of us have lost family members. They're grieving too. They were impacted too. Some of their friends have lost family members. They see all the news. They watch everything going on. So they are being traumatized as well. So they're being exposed to trauma. So please pay extra attention and please be gracious with them during this time. Be patient. Let them get away with some things. Don't be as rigid as you used to be, because as we said, these are unprecedented times. This everything is different. So everyone is at high alert. Everyone is overstressed now. So like I said, when you begin to see symptoms, when you begin to see all these things, always start with primary care or your GP or your pediatrician. Start with them. They're your best resource, because first of all, they've seen you over a period of time, so they will be better able to help you in the initial stages. And then if you need to be referred out, most insurances require referral anyway. So it's best to start with your primary care. But in case of an emergency, you go to the nearest emergency room, because that's the best place to get help to stabilize the person, whether it's you or someone else, to stabilize that person while help is being administered. And there's some resources online. The National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, you can check their website. In the state of Maryland, they have something called 211. So if you dial 211 in the state of Maryland, they'll be able to connect, give you information on mental health resources. There national domestic violence hotlines. There are different national sexual assault hotlines. There are different hotlines out there. So if you go online, you can get resources. You can also search for people of faith when it comes to mental health resources. You can search for people of color, because there's sometimes people are like, I want to meet someone who can understand my culture. They can understand where I'm coming from. And I like to just throw this out there while we're talking about culture. For those who are thinking of a career change, for our young ones that are coming up, considering careers to go into, we really, really need people of African descent in the mental health field, in the research and assessment area, because a lot of the materials we use, a lot of the testings and the assessments we use, they are based on the Caucasian culture and primarily male. So a lot of it is skewed. The readings are skewed, the results are skewed, and we tend to have a high level of misdiagnosis in our community. So anyone who can look into that will really, really appreciate it, because it's a need out there. So get help when you need it. There's no shame about it. Just get the help.
Absolutely. And thank you, Toyin. That's wonderful feedback. Okay. Says, which of the following has had the greatest on your emotional and mental health? And majority of the answer has been the COVID pandemic, and also the global unrest, which is not just happening in the US, it's happening all over the world. I mean, we in the US don't get to see a lot of news from other countries, but it's happening all over the world. 2020 is definitely that year where we need to be super aware, more internal looking, super aware of who we are and our reaction to what's going on. Thank you, Toyin, for sharing those resources. Again, we're going to talk more about this in subsequent shows. It's just not enough time to really delve into all the dimensions of this, but it's such an important topic. And we're so glad that you were able to join us on this call. And just to summarize, it's very important that we are aware of our stress indicators, our triggers. What is triggering us? How are we feeling right now? Put a finger on the pulse on a constant basis, and set boundaries. Know your limits. Seek for balance in your life, and pay attention to your kids, especially as Toyin mentioned. And even look younger. I mean, the teenagers, yes, but even the little ones. If they're acting up, being a little bit more, naughtier than usual, sit down and talk with them and find out what's going on. There are things that are going on. Kids, online schooling is not cut out for everybody, and they may not feel comfortable talking about it. And so we may have to probe. And then, most importantly, like it's been mentioned, prayer. Stay connected to your source, stay connected to God, and let God, direct your path. I want to thank everyone for joining us this call. I want to thank my girlfriends as usual. It's been an enlightening conversation. I especially want to thank our guest speaker today, Toyin. I mentioned her bio earlier. She's an incredible resource. There's so much going on in the mental health space right now, and we're looking for people to join. And so I want to wish everyone a super fantastic weekend. Today is supposed to be, a wonky day with full moon and Halloween and all this stuff going on. But, let's stay positive. Let's stay grateful to God and focus on the things that make us happy. Thank you. Bye.
Your king came on again. No, I just sneezed it. Something was playing. So, you can
I've never seen this thing.